again, thanks panelists for coming today. I know many of you came all the way from New York City and St. Bart's, and it's really appreciated. Also, thank you to all the students who showed up today, as well as the parents who gave a nod to their students. I know we're going to have a terrific panel discussion on all the careers. But first, a brief welcome from our Mayor, Michael Irving.
Before I do or say anything, came from St. Bart's? Oh, did you really?
I don't live there. I was working there.
Okay. I just had to clarify that. I want to thank you all definitely for coming. It is great to see all these different professions here. It's a great opportunity for the youth to get an idea of different job opportunities. One of the difficult things on living on the East End is you don't get a lot of interaction. You don't get a lot of interaction from businesses and professionals like yourselves, and it is so important and so lucky to the individuals that are in the audience here to have the availability to speak with you and get an idea of the different careers that are available. One of the things we just were at a DEAR program, and the kids were graduating, and all I could think of is what a great program, because there is so much in the world for all of you young kids to do, all you juniors that are starting to come out of high school and come out of school. The world is really available to you. And through DEAR programs and such, they instruct them to understand not to get involved in drugs, not to get involved with alcohol, and to have a very positive attitude, because with the technology and opportunities that are available in the world today, you can do just about anything you want, but you got to work for it, and you got to come here, and you got to talk to people and get a direction. So I'll leave it to Nicole, and we'll start it off.
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming. I'm sure that this hopefully will be very informative to everyone. And first, thanks to my panel, everyone that's here. Lots to talk about. So first, I'd like to brief everyone as to who I am. So I know that it says Nikki on the daily. I am a full-time staff writer with the local independent newspaper based out of East Hampton. But in addition to that, because I've been with them since 2011, where right after college, I didn't know where to turn to, and I wanted to be a journalist, the Independent gave me a position. I worked for free, and then I eventually worked my way up to getting paid and now staff. Now, in addition, the reason why it doesn't say the Independent is because I also work with Newsday Media Group, and my byline, Nikki on the Daily, is a trademarked byline, one of the first of its kind as a journalist, where I'm expanding my coverage to include travel journalism, and I'm only 29, so it keeps going up from here. So now I'd like to turn to my panel, and Dr. James, let's start with you.
Okay, welcome everybody. Anybody in the audience want to go to medical school, want to become a doctor? Any thoughts? Okay. well, I'll keep it brief then. Really, with a lot of professions, education is kind of the basis. I think medical school and becoming a doctor is probably your highest level of education. You probably do more years of training than in any other field. So the commitment that it requires from the prospective medical student is pretty high. You start in high school and you kind of think high school's pretty tough, you're studying a lot. Then you get to college and you realize, wow, how easy high school really was. And you get to medical school and you realize that high school, college were nothing compared to medical school. So basically what I'm trying to say is if you have any intention of doing it, your commitment has to be super high. You have to be so committed to long hours of studying and pretty much giving up a good part of your young adulthood in the pursuit of becoming a doctor. there isn't anything more interesting that I could ever imagine doing, and that's why I went into that field and I made that commitment. As far as any tips to get you into medical school, I think you just have to say to yourself, I'm going to work as hard as I can. The process is one of weeding out from the time you start in college. And if you make that commitment to yourself and you stay true to yourself and never falter. So maybe in other fields you could take a year off and travel to Europe or things along those lines. But in medical school, it's kind of like training for a marathon. Each level, from high school to college, you're a person who studies better and has more commitment. From college to medical school, it's almost like, you're ready for that marathon. And your skills improve in studying. I mean, it's hard to believe that the same person studying in high school has the same brain and the same aptitude, but when they get to college and then medical school, their ability to study, their efficiency is so much higher. And it's just like if you're a marathon runner. If you started when you were in high school and then ended up in medical school, you're probably going to be a much better runner. And that's kind of the way it works with your brain. Is there any inside tips to becoming a doctor? I think first and foremost, you have to make sure you really want to do it. So I advise people to volunteer. There's no internships, there's no formal stepping stone to get into medical school, but with your own interests, you could go volunteer in an ambulance corps, you could volunteer at the hospital, and in like an emergency room or something along those lines. When the doctors have their downtime and the nurses have their downtime, they don't mind talking to you about their careers and how they started and, the education that it takes to get there. I volunteered when I was in high school and college, and the insight that you get into what their day is really like. You have no clue how they start, how they end the day. You get to see a little excerpt, a little snippet if you're a patient yourself, but you don't get the real full concept of what their day is like. So my day starts with the toughest patients. You jump right into it. So you go to the hospital and do hospital rounds. That's your sickest patients. And they're the happiest to see you because they're in the worst situation. So to know that they have their own doctor by their side, you jump in and you spend an hour or two in the hospital. Then you go to your office, and I see some patients my patients in the audience, and they can attest that I'm late probably 50 to 80% of the time. And I'm not golfing. I'm not taking an extra long breakfast, but you get stuck at the hospital and you give your sickest patients the time they need, and when you really think you have it wrapped up, then you go to the office. Once you're in the office, that type of patient varies from doing simple physical exams, we call them civilian physical exams, or fire department, police department physical exams. We do a lot of cancer screening, and we do a ton of education. So really, the old days of medicine, you prescribed medicine and nobody questioned what you prescribed. Today, to make the patient understand and be compliant with your treatment, the more they understand, the more they're invested in taking care of themselves. So things that you can't feel, like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, are the things that you have to get these concepts, these abstract thoughts across to your patients, because the ones who come in with a bad shoulder and they're in pain, and you give them pain medicines to reduce their pain and inflammation, the next day they call up and they thank you for it, because that was a concrete, episode of illness. But when you're treating patients for things they can't feel, you're really obligated to educate them and try and get them up to speed on why you're doing it. So you prescribe medicines all day long. You really try and get people to exercise and diet. It's the biggest, probably the most time I spend in a day is trying to do the non-medicine treatments. And I guess by the end of the day, you saw such a variety of patients. I do newborn nursery up until a few years ago, pediatrics, and adult medicine. So you see congestive heart failure, you see patients coming in with sore throats, all the minor stuff, but mixed in with some complicated things. I also do house calls. Not many doctors do that today. And that's when your patients' families appreciate you, because now you become a team with the family. You know, if somebody's sick enough that they can't make it to an office, well, they have really high levels of needs. The intrinsic response, the intrinsic value you get out of doing house calls, even though it's the hardest part of your day because you take so much time away from your office, you can't replace that feeling you get when you go help somebody who really can't help themselves. And if it wasn't for you going to their house, they may need to be in a nursing home or something like that. So I kind of enjoy that part of it, although it's the toughest part of my day. And then community service. I work for 30 years with an adult handicapped community that has physical and cognitive challenges. And I go to that facility once a week for the last 30 years, and you talk to people who work in the facility. They're not making a lot of money, they don't have the best benefits in the world, but they're there for a reason, and you could tell that they're the type of people who really feel like they have to give back. And when whatever career you pick, I think you feel obligated to give back. If you don't, you should check the reason you're doing it in the first place. So once a week I do that adult challenged community in West Hampton, and that kind of fulfills me. That's a really wonderful part of my day. The people that I work with, I actually look forward to go there once a week. The people I work with are just incredibly understanding and patient and gentle with their patient population. So from morning till night, anything could come up, any challenges, any medical problems. In fact, the reason I'm 2 minutes late walking in is I just got called in for a patient who was in a motor vehicle accident and has a multiple trauma issue that they're going to have a team approach to. So there'll be a surgeon that takes care of trauma surgery. There'll be a family doctor or a general doctor who prescribes the medications, and if things get complicated, we call in other specialists. So your day can change from minute to minute. From the hour that I walked in here ago till now, I had no idea what I'd be doing the rest of my night, which is probably going to work in the emergency room. So that's my day. That's my career choice. And, you know, just volunteer. If you ever want to go into medicine, you have to make sure that's what you really want to do. Make the commitment.
Now, I have a question for you, which I'm sure students here would love to know. Doctors save lives. You really are the reason why people stay healthy and happy. You mentioned that the journey getting there to where you are today has been very long, a lot of dedicated hours. So if I'm a student back in school, I don't want to hear that. That's scaring me. But however, so we have so many doctors to thank because of their journey. So what was something that was like the light at the end of the tunnel, aside from becoming a doctor, that got you through all of those years of education?
I think any career, you have to love what you do. So if you look at the steps it takes to become a doctor, science is my love. So every doctor is really a scientist, whether it's chemistry, which is a big part of our day, whether it's biology, which is another big part. All those science, the basic sciences we call them, contribute to your education, and you have to love them. So if you're struggling in school with the subject matter, I'm not saying the grades, but the actual subject matter, and you decide, yeah, biology isn't for me or chemistry isn't for me, then it's not going to be an easy going. But if you really love it, if you love the education process and you love the field itself, then I think it falls into place.
Perfect. Any questions from our audience right now?
I just want to bring up that there's different aspects of medicine today, because medicine has changed over the years and gotten so broad. One of the very interesting things right here in the village of Southampton is we have the volunteer ambulance service that are mostly all EMTs, and believe it or not, a majority of the kids coming out of Southampton High School are signing up as volunteers for the ambulance service. So if you're coming out of school, there's different aspects of medicine that you can get involved in. And they're very active. They start out as EMTs, and then there's the different classifications, and they're pretty close to being doctors, I think, today. So
They spend a lot of time at our hospital. Part of their basic training is to actually spend, 150 hours, I think it is, in an ER setting. So they really do get the full exposure that you would expect them to get, because when they're in the field, they're not on their own, but almost on their own.
Yep. So if you're looking for a career and along that lines, that's something to look at. And I think that internationally, it's become a huge thing. There's with different borders and migrants today, there's a real call for services from EMTs and EMS services worldwide, not just in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, next. Next, we'll turn to Ray.
Okay.
How are you?
Very good.
Good. Okay, so tell us about what you do.
Well, I'm going to come at this from a little different angle. My background's a little different. I'm a licensed master plumber by trade. I worked in Manhattan for many, many years, and then I had the opportunity to actually become a teacher, and I went into education. So what happened when I was younger, and my father was also a master plumber, and when his friends would say to him, hey, in front of me, hey, Ray, you're going to be like Dad, you're going to be a plumber? And my father would say, he's going to college first, and then he'll make a decision. So I went to college and became a plumber anyway. So having the educational background and then going into a trade which I went into because I loved it. And a lot of friends go, how do you love plumbing? I don't know, but just something about it that I didn't realize why I loved it until I became a teacher. When I was going through my teaching education courses, I realized at that point in time that I was a hands-on physical learner. I love working with my hands, and I never was really told that. So once I found that out, I really pursued my passion. I got my license. I had my own thing on the side, licensed and insured, the whole deal. So I do that on my side, and all teachers have something they do. And I love it. It's part of my day where I can lose a shirt and a tie, and I can throw on my jeans and go out and have a good time. And it's something that, it's physical, it's also mental, because there's a lot of troubleshooting. When I was in the classroom, I used to tell my students that part of being a good tradesman is troubleshooting. I said, you're basically like the Sherlock Holmes of why somebody has a problem. Has anybody in here ever had a plumbing problem or a heating problem in their house? Okay. Try to get a plumber on a Sunday, right? So it's one of those things that I really enjoyed. So in my course, working for Eastern Suffolk BOCES, which we are now called the Eastern Long Island Academy of Applied Technology, same thing, but we were a trade school. So as I was working for Eastern Suffolk BOCES, it's just a little easier to say because it's not as long and winded. I had the opportunity to actually move in the agency to become a work experience coordinator, and that's how I come to you today. So my job is awesome because I still deal with my students. I deal with students in every part of our school. I'm located in the Riverhead Center, Ward Technical Center, and we have a variety of programs. So before you guys leave today, I brought some brochures in the back that kind of explain our programs that we offer. But coming at it from my point of view, and I see on the panel we have doctors, we have police officers, we have a chef down there, I think, right? So we have all these wonderful trades. And the question you are asking us, I'm assuming, is how do I get into these trades? And what I'm going to say to you is, well, what do you guys like to do? Do you guys know what you want to do right now for the rest of your life? Is anybody out there? Because I don't know what I want to do when I grow up either. All right? But one of the opportunities you have as a junior and a senior in high school is to enroll in our programs at Eastern Suffolk BOCES. And depending on what you like, you can pursue your passion. So, if you pursue your passion, you'll never work a day in your life. It's going to be something you're going to enjoy. How many people do you know, if you're hanging out on a Sunday, will say, tomorrow I got to go to work. I hate going to work. I got to deal with this. I got to deal with that. What if I told you can be on a Sunday at a party and say, wow, tomorrow's Monday? Awesome. I can't wait to go to work tomorrow. And you pop out of bed on Monday morning, your alarm doesn't even go off. That's an awesome way to live your life. So if you can find what you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. So what our programs offer is you have the experience to come to our school, enroll in a program that you think you would like. We have a variety of programs, and I'll name who's on my campus as I go around campus in my head. We have auto body repair, auto mechanics. We have animal science. We have HVAC&R, which is heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration. We have audio production, so we have a lot of kids who are mixing music and making beats and all that stuff. We have a law enforcement program as well. So we have a culinary arts program. We have cosmetology. We have early childhood education. We have clinical medical assisting. So if you wanted to go into the medical field, that is one way that you can start the medical field, and you can come to our school. So now you come to our school, you enroll in the program. And if you're in the program for a while and you love it, that's great. It's fantastic. If you hate it, that's good too. Because if you know you don't like it right away, something you thought you would like, it gives you time enough to change it. Instead of graduating high school and going to college and enrolling in a program that you think you like, and then hating it all along, your freshman and sophomore and junior and senior year, spending all the money, coming out and saying, well, I have my degree right now, but I hate it, don't like it. So this gives you an opportunity to kind of see where you're at. If you do like the program and you decide to stay in our program as a junior, you come back for the second year as a senior. And the nice thing is that you got this wonderful work-study coordinator who can help you to go on an internship. So my job now is to put our students onto internships. So I basically deal with school to community and business relations. So for instance, I have a student in clinical medical assisting this week. I was able to put that student to an internship at the Conic Pediatrics, and she's having a great experience. And she's actually, she's just putting so many hours in that they're really interested in possibly hiring her at the end of her internship. I have students all up and down Old County Road, 58, all over the place. So it really gives the student an idea of how a daily operation goes. Like the doctor said before, you kind of see the day-to-day, how everything works. The classroom is wonderful for learning and getting the basics and getting all that stuff you need to know. In my class, when I used to have my students come in when I was still teaching, they said, well, what are you going to teach me? How to use a plunger? And I'd be like, no, there's a lot more to plumbing than just plunging a toilet bowl. There's theory, there's code, there's design, there's a lot of things. There's math, there's all sorts of things in plumbing. It's not just plunging a toilet bowl. But I'll be happy to come over and plunge a toilet bowl for $200 for a plunge. So when I would tell my students that, they started to turn on to like, well, maybe this guy has something to teach me. And all our instructors are professionals at our school, so it's a nice way to get a good experience, get knowledge, be in a program you enjoy, do hands-on work, do also notes, there's also tests. It's just like your regular high school, but there's also a time when you're actually getting up and physically doing the work. And then if you really enjoy it, I can put you out into an internship where you'll get even more experience. The best part of my day is when I go and do an internship, and I'll have somebody there, and I'll say, how's my student doing? And that particular business owner will say to me, how old is this student? 17, 18 years old. Why? Why do you ask? That kid knows more than I have people working for me who are 27, 28 years old with 10 more years under their belt. This kid knows more than they do. Send me some more. And those internships that turn into paid internships, where that student's actually going and getting paid, and it's a great thing. It's a great thing. So it's a nice program. So if you're interested in something, like I said, I brought some brochures you can look through and see if anything turns you on. And we have a visitors night in February. You can come and see our schools. We have 3 locations. The closest one for you would be Riverhead, but we also have other centers in Brookhaven and Islip, which Islip, by the time you get there, it's possibly over. But it's really that's it.
And how long are the internships?
The internships can vary. It depends. If an internship is going well, I usually try to make that internship a paid internship after about a month. I like to give the employer the opportunity to see what the student is like. I never throw a student into an internship and tell the employer you have to pay them right away. It's basically a glorified job interview, so it gives the employer the option. I want the employers to feel comfortable with our interns. I have to build a layer of trust, because if I put somebody out who is not really showing the school in the best light, and then they do things that are wrong, and the employer gets upset, and the person hired them and is paying them, it's a problem. So it's basically a nice thing where I can put that student out. It's a school-sponsored event. We cover the student on our insurance policy, and this way that person gets an idea of how that student really is. It's easy to pull it off for a week or two, as far as if you're trying to, do the right thing, but there's a pattern that develops after a while that, okay, now that person's going to start to come late, for an instance. I would say out of every 100 internships I do, I probably have one that I have to pull back into the school. Our program is very successful, but there's sometimes that things happen, and I'll have to pull a student out for a reason, but that's usually about it. The students we put out really represent the best part of our programs, and it's something that they want to do. And when you tell them they have to come back to school, it's like, no, I want to stay on my internship. But I can have a student go out for a couple of weeks, or I can have a student go out for the rest of the school year. It really depends.
So it really sounds like from your program, everything's really hands-on. So for people who might not necessarily want to sit in a classroom or have because everyone talks about, unfortunately, the attention spans of today, and I went to a four-year college. Sometimes I wish I went to one of those kind of schools. It's much better for people who are more inclined to really get out there quicker and wanting to learn a little bit.
And I'll also say this too, 85% of our students go on to higher education. So in years past when I was working for BOCES and I was the teacher in the classroom, a lot of times I would get parents come in on visitors night where the student would come in first as a visitor day. The parents would come back as a visitor night with that child. And I had parents come up to me and they'd say, hey, Mr. Lofreese, this is great, nice classroom, my kid's not coming to your class. And I'd say, well, what's the matter? Well, I don't want my son or daughter being a plumber or electrician, I said, why don't you hear what we do here first? And I never lost a student after that. Once that had happened, the parents would be like, I never knew this happened. I never knew this opportunity was here for my son and my daughter. And they would stay. So there's a lot to it that's really positive. The post-educational stuff is really good too. I think once a student finds their learning style, they can identify it and we can strengthen that learning style and then kind of turn them on to education. It's nice when you're able to get out of your seat and not be sitting in your English class and, okay, you're in English class for 45 minutes. When you come to us, you're taking notes, you're in class for, half an hour, and then you're in shop for, 2 hours. So it's a nice way to practice and be able to put together what you're learning in class and actually use it right away to do a project or thing.
Incredible. Any questions from the audience?
We know, we got to wait for the mic.
We have to say goodbye to our...
Well, mayors love to speak, but, I just want to support Ray because I've used a lot of your interns, and they've come and worked for me over the summer, and they've been great. And some of them I've seen go on, and I was a little bit behind in because I'm in the marine industry, and I was a little behind in hauling out boats this winter. And I reached out to a guy that I sponsored, and that was in BOCES probably 15 years ago, that I put through school there. And he came up from the Carolinas and helped me finish up. So, you have a great program going, great opportunity for somebody who just doesn't want to do the normal reading and writing and computer technology we see so much today. And I'll tell you a real quick funny story. My son was in college in Colorado, and he was there for a number of years, and I got that proverbial call in the middle of the night, and he goes, Dad, he goes, I don't know about this college stuff. And I go, oh, no. And he goes, there's an awful lot of guys that are graduating in front of me, and none of them have a job. And I go, well, it's a tough climate. And he goes, so I just enrolled at that time in Denver Diesel, which is Lincoln Technology now, and he graduated in 3 years from there, did their extended business program they had, and he had a list a mile long of companies all the way from the Middle East to in the United States that were looking for him. And he ended up moving to, of all places, Utah. and he has his own business there, and he takes care of all the hydraulics and diesels on the snowcats in Park City and Deer Valley and Canyon. So, you know, there's different opportunities out there for different people, so you should look around, and this is, again, a great opportunity to find those. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So doctor has to go save lives now. Thank you. Okay. So next, let's turn it over to a chef, professional chef at Southampton Inn. James, hello.
Hello, how are you? Hello.
You don't have to touch it.
As the doctor who just left and other professionals speaking, a typical day, very early for me. Different careers in the food service industry. I'll tell you, it's a very slim few that get those glamorous Food Network jobs. That's not reality, okay? There's long hours, there's blood, sweat, tears, everything that goes along with that. And late hours as well, holidays, weekends. Hey, it's a fun day, everyone's going to the beach. I'm going to my dungeon called the kitchen. But I realized early on that I love cooking. I think I've got a job while I was in high school at a very nice 5-star restaurant. So I learned from real professional chefs on how to execute and do things. And they said, if you want to follow this as a career, you have to work at good places and further your education. So as soon as I graduated high school, I joined the military. I was a cook in the Navy for 4 years. For me, that allowed me to travel all over. Still cooking, a totally different type of cooking, you know, on a boat for 3,000 people. So that was good to, you know how to do that. Do I want to do that again? No. But to travel and see different cultures and different foods, and at a young age, I was very impressionable on that. Got out of the military, worked for some large hotels because of that military chain of command. A big hotel, very corporate structured, so they tell you what to do, just like the military does. And at a young age, I'm now in my early 20s, it's easy to follow direction, and you advance. I went to a culinary school, which, while in high school, I did enroll in the BOCES program. Just start you off, and, oh, this is great, I love it, and I moved on with it. I didn't care for that, that's not for me. You know, cleaning fish and guts and meat, not for me. But it was. So I continued on, went to a great culinary school, Johnson in Wales. At the time, they have several campuses. I was in Charleston, South Carolina. Loved the South, beautiful. Graduated, went back to Minneapolis. Great job with a large department store and a hotel. Left there. Worked down south in a lot of very fine dining restaurants. That was kind of my niche. I mean, I like the ingredients you used. I mean, once again, I was in the military and fine dining, very different types of cooking. But still a niche that needs to be, developed. Let's see, the BOCES and different fields. As a chef, I've also been a pastry chef. I've had to be a butcher for quite some time. And you get all these experience under your belt, so now I can command a kitchen and I can tell the pastry chef what to do and what I want. And I can tell the butcher how something needs to be cut. And because we're here in Suffolk County, you have to be a certification because the health department is very strict. So you not only can I cook fancy food, but I need to know how to properly handle the food that people are going to eat. I don't want to be the one to get someone sick, That's the biggest, fear that a chef could have. So how to prepare food, and because we're here on Long Island, we're very lucky to have such beautiful farm, agriculture, right around the water, all the beautiful fish that we can get. So when I landed here, I'd been in New Orleans, Atlanta, Miami, Colorado, all nice places, but Long Island, I grew up in Westchester, so it wasn't too far away. But we have all these wonderful things that a chef really looks for. The great produce. I would stop at the farmer's market on my way into work, grab some ingredients, and that's going to be on the special that night. Or I have the farmer deliver it to my restaurant. And that's very gratifying that I can take something that was growing in the field that morning, and now it's on your plate and you're enjoying it. So that's the self-gratification that I get out of doing this. And as well as building a team. The BOCES and the Suffolk County program, I've used many students from there, interns over the summer to work on my restaurant, who have now gone on to New York City, Gramercy Tavern, and some really big name restaurants, and are very successful chefs. But it's not easy work. It's hard work. Long hours, physically demanding. Like the doctor says, if you're going to make a commitment for a career, you want to dabble in it a little bit first to see if that's the path you want to take. Because if you don't care for cooking, you are crazy to be in this business. Really. You can't. But there are different aspects. I speak from my past experience. Military, large quantities, a lot of traveling, fine dining, but there are many different opportunities out there. People become teachers, instructors, very gratifying as well. You're training I train people every day who come into my kitchen. I want to be a cook like you, chef. Okay. Can you pick up a knife? All right, here's the Band-Aid box, go home. But it doesn't have to be what I do. People are amazing caterers. That's a beautiful art to prepare something, take it elsewhere and make it look beautiful, not in your own kitchen. That's a great skill. I don't really have that well. Baking, some chefs are hotel chefs. That's what they do. Corporate chefs, boom, they're huge. Chain food, not my thing, but do people make great money, and can they come in? I'm in charge of 27 units, 27 restaurants. That's a skill set that some people gravitate towards. So there's many different opportunities, not just, hey, I'm gonna be a cook at Della Famina. I don't know if anyone here, some people know, some people don't. But places like that, that's nice, and you really need to have that extra education under your belt to do that. Are there great chefs out there who've never been to school? Absolutely. But for people who may not be certain of what they're gonna do, schooling before that leap is gonna be a wise decision, I think. What else? I have always thought about being a chef, so I never ventured anywhere else. Once again, the gratification and the creativity that you can have, for me, is very amazing. And I think a field, especially out here, it's a very seasonal area. So work is very challenging. You get a lot of transient people. I'm here for the summer, I'm here doing an internship, or I go back to my country in the winter. That's great, Are you coming back next year? Perfect. So, I have skill sets all over the globe that come and work for me out here. So that's another very gratifying thing for being a chef. What else? We were talking about networking. I have chefs all over the country, hey, I have this young man who just got out of school, he worked for me all summer, or worked with me for a year. I'm slow, do you need someone in Atlanta? Oh, I've got 2 restaurants, send him down. I can hook him up with someone else. So you can, if you're good, I'll put my, stamp on this individual, go here, and they say it was fabulous. And then I have the chance to travel, see a new restaurant, see a new environment, a city, and the different cultures and food. And that's very a positive thing in this profession. It's there's nothing wrong with if you're working in an office or a desk, you have a purpose there and you're doing something that you love, I would hope. But if you don't like what you're doing, it's kind of crazy to spend your whole life doing it. I know everyone has their own reason why they have to, financial, location, family. But for culinary schools, there's so many, 30 or so in New York alone. But to test the waters in a local culinary program like Suffolk is a good, I'm getting my feet wet. I kind of know what I'm getting into before you take the plunge and go to the CIA or Johnson & Wales and spend $30,000 or $40,000 and figure out this is not for me. So advancing yourself with first the higher education of it and working in the industry to see if you like it. Because I've been doing this now professionally 35 plus years. If I didn't like this, I'd be really mad. I think that's all I have.
Now, what about, I do have a question, and I'm sure, well, only because, now out here, the food truck, it's not even a revolution anymore. This is here to stay. From the city, it's all over, and now, students today are graduating or going into the field where suddenly being a chef, you don't have to work for a restaurant. You could invest a bunch of money into a portable of your own. Do you think that is, for someone who might say, let me try this out, I have disposable money, maybe they've been saving up because their parents have been teaching them correctly. Do you think that's a viable option for someone who might want to test out the waters in the food truck? Or you still recommending do the schooling and all of that?
I would definitely say do the schooling. The potential for success, and a lot of places have done this. I have a restaurant, then I get a food truck. I have a following. Now I have a food truck I can send out. To start off your first business venture is a food truck, unless you have worked somewhere and you can say on your resume, I've been in this famous restaurant and this is the type of food I do.
Right.
And you really have to follow the seasons. Are you in the city all the time? Is it a very urban area? And the competition, I think, is very fierce there, you know? Whereas out here, you're making lots of money in the summer. What are you doing now? In your fruit and ice cream shop. So, it has to be thought out.
Right. No, of course. And another question I have is for people, so obviously you're constantly developing these relationships from people who are your meat guy, your fish guy, your produce person, and even your clientele. I'm sure that your top clients, the top person that's coming in, you're coming out, you're shaking hands, you're making sure they're happy. For someone who might be an introvert, do you think that this is still a viable and perhaps like successful career path? Or do you see it as only sort of you really have to be into the people relationship building?
Well, yes and no. It's if you have your own place and your name is on it, you have to be self-promoting. There has to be public relations. You have to go out and advertise yourself. You're selling yourself.
Right.
So you do. But are there great chefs who, I'm in the kitchen, I don't go to the dining room. I don't need to talk to everyone. But their skill set in the kitchen is fabulous.
Right.
I've had chefs who work for me go outside and talk to the people, James, I can do that. But some people just not comfortable in being in the limelight or being in the public eye, but they excel greatly in the back of the house.
Okay.
So it's not mandatory. Depending what path you'll take, it could help you on that.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? Okay. Thank you. All right, I'm going to switch things over a bit to Tony Piazza. Let's talk about you.
Well, I'm here representing the landscape world and the horticulture world, so I'm gonna try not to touch on all the themes that we've already touched on, but I think my biggest advice is to try to follow your passions in life, because I've been what I consider a plant geek since I was 8 years old. So my bedroom had about 20 fluorescent light fixtures hanging in it. And I was growing plants in my bedroom. My mother's a saint. But so I've sort of always known what I wanted to do. I've always been focused on somehow dealing with plants in my life. And I followed that. There, unfortunately, where I went to high school, there weren't very many options. Like, we didn't have a BOCES program that had anything to do with greenhouses or landscape or anything like that. So I had to sort of figure it out on my own. But I did go to SUNY Cobleskill for 2 years in their horticulture program, and decided that I liked it enough and followed up my education at Cornell. So I think there's a recurring theme here with the education as a background. And my education at Cobleskill gave me the practical background that I use in the field every day, and Cornell gave me sort of the business and design background that I use on a daily basis as well. So one of the things I want to impress upon you is that in this industry, in horticulture and landscaping, there are career opportunities on so many different levels, from field technicians to designers to plant buyers. There are just so many different strata within the business that there are career opportunities at every level of education and sort of desire. So I guess my personality took me down a path where I wanted to start my own company, which is what I did. And my company sort of supports my design work. So when as a designer in any field, whether it's like fabric design or landscape design or furniture design, one of the hardest thing to do is make sure that your design integrity is held, through to the end product. So I took that into my own hands and started a landscape company alongside of what I do. So let me give you an idea what my typical day is like. We also start very early. I'm in the office at 7 a.m. I'm usually up at 4 a.m. because I'm 4:30, because take care of some personal stuff like exercise and that sort of thing. So it's a very early day for me. Then 7 a.m. is our first staff meeting, and I meet with the field staff first. We set up the day, and then I go to the design people, set up their day, meet with the administrative people, the people who run the business, set up their day, and then I hit the road. I'm in the field till around 12 or 1 o'clock. And in the field, I'm going from site to site, basically checking on how the projects are progressing, or if it's a maintenance situation, making sure that everything is sort of going smoothly on the job. Then I'm back at the office, and I try to devote 2 hours to my design work every day to keep that moving, because we have deliverables on that end. And then I spend about an hour on business administration, which is something that they don't really train you for in horticulture school. Somebody has to know about paying taxes and payroll and all that sort of stuff. So I've surrounded myself with great people, but I still have to be involved with that on a daily basis. Then I'm usually home by 6 or 6:30. So that seems to be a recurring theme also. It's long days and hard work. So prepare yourself for that in life in general. Skills or tips that at this level in high school, it would be good. And this might sound crazy, but I come from a generation where touch typing was not sort of considered necessary in life. Learn how to type. Also, one of the things that I did that was sort of kind of poo-pooed when I was a kid, but I took Latin in high school for 4 years. And I can't tell you how every day, first of all, in my field, all plant names are Latin words. So, and a lot of the plant names are descriptive in Latin of the plant. So that helps me tremendously. And then we know that Latin is the root of all the Romance languages. So my Latin helped me quickly learn Spanish, which I use on a daily basis with the guys that I work with. And as I mentioned earlier, I just got back from a trip to St. Bart's where I had to speak a lot of French. So I think language is a good thing. You know, English might be the language of the world, but that's changing very quickly. So take those foreign language classes.
I think the doctor would say the same thing as well about the Latin.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then as far as how would I approach the education and training part of my field, and like I said earlier, there are so many levels. If you can take, you know, any practical horticulture courses and get a certificate program, you can get a floral design certificate, you'll have a job for life. You can get a PhD in plant science and have a job for life. In my office, we have people with master's degrees in environmental design and environmental studies, because a lot of our work is environmentally based. And then we have guys that finished high school that have learned practically and worked their way up the ladder. So any level of education that you're interested in or capable of, get it, and then find your place in the business that fits you. One of the big mistakes that I made, I think one of the things that I grew up in upstate New York, sort of in a very depressed area, and I had no idea what the world had to offer me in my chosen career path. So research as much as you can what the possibilities are, because I'll tell you, when I was in high school, I never thought I'd be sitting behind this desk today, and I never thought I would be doing the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. I probably honestly would have gone to school for landscape architecture and become certified if I had known that I could even make a living doing that. So I kind of have the best of both worlds now, where I do landscape architecture work, but I'm not certified to stamp my plans and stuff. So the way around that is to work with engineers and other architects that can stamp my plans for me. Like I said, I've known since I was 8 years old that I wanted to do something with plants, and I think, you know, focus is really important in life, but let a little serendipity come into play too, because I believe that your path is out there. You just have to, when opportunities present themselves, take them and go forward with them. And then as far as mentorships or networking and internships, I think in the landscape and horticulture field, the best internships are paid summer jobs. And anybody, I know out here, anybody who is breathing will get a job in the summer working in landscape. So if you're interested, I honestly, the best thing to do is start in the trenches. Start in a crew, because that's where you're going to learn and you're going to decide whether or not this is cut out for you. Because there are still days when I have to get my pruner out of my truck and show somebody how to do some things. So all of that stuff was learned in the field on a day-to-day basis. And, you know, mentors are really good. That's something that I think if I did have a couple of mentors when I was younger, but I think you'll find a lot of people, professionals, are so happy to share their experiences and advice with people. So don't be afraid to ask. If there's anybody that you might admire in the community that's in your field that you want to go into, don't be surprised. Send them an email, give them a call. They're more than happy to share and more than happy to help. And you know, one of the things that, especially out here in the Hamptons, I find that my work is, I don't feel that it's helping the world. I think it's helping a very sort of small microcosm of society. So one of the ways that I've sort of, I feel that for my personal fulfillment, I wanted to give back to my community. So I do a lot of pro bono work for the local communities as far as design work. And I'm also part of this toxin-free movement that's going on in the community as far as toxin-free landscape management, where use of chemicals is just not sort of accepted anymore, and moving into that direction. And I do a lot of volunteer work with projects like Project Most in East Hampton. And I was on the board of directors for the Children's Museum in Bridgehampton. So once you do get established in your career, think about how you can give back, because you didn't do it on your own. There are a lot of people that got you to where you were. And that's about it.
Questions from the audience? Yeah. Microphone.
Hey, hello everyone. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, audience. My name is Nate. I'm a student. Also, I'm a young entrepreneur. So I've been doing this since I was about 16. Ran through about 3 different ideas until I found one that I actually liked and stuck with. So question I have for you is, when it comes to actually building a team, outside of things that people are like certified to do, what do you look for outside of like certification or certificates or different things like that as far as you building a team?
Passion and enthusiasm are probably the biggest things that I look for. I have people working in my company that had no horticultural education, but came to me saying, my grandmother grew vegetables and I grew up next to her and I want to do that. Do you have opportunities in your company? And as a matter of fact, 20% of our maintenance jobs are managing vegetable gardens for people. And this guy has been with us for 3 years, started out as an hourly rate and is a year-round salaried person now, managing about 12 vegetable gardens on private property. So he had a passion and enthusiasm, and that was more important to me than some educational certificate, basically, that you really can't get for that. So I think it's enthusiasm and passion and dedication too.
Okay. One last question before I sit down. Burnout. So as far as because you constantly like flowing like all day long, as far as like running the business and everything. So as far as you like dealing with burnout, or like what keeps you constantly going throughout the day? I know obviously you said exercise, which is a obvious one, but
so to get a little personal, I'm a long distance runner, and I think without that, my head would probably explode. So you need some time to yourself in your life, and unfortunately, because of what I do, I have to carve that out of my life early in the morning, because I have a staff of about 30 people, and then I have a personal life too. So taking that time out of my day is just not an option. So to avoid that, I think the best thing to do is make sure you take some time for yourself every day, even if it's sacrificing the time of the day. And travel. Get out there and get refreshed. If you can get a week off a year, get out of whatever you're doing and see something new. Even if you go to the next county over. I'm not saying you have to go to India and find yourself with a guru, but just get out of your daily routine and get inspired, because you'd be surprised when you come back how that you can work that into your routine.
thank you. Sure.
Anyone else? Great, thank you so much. So speaking of travel, let's turn it over to our pilot. And I don't know if you guys want to do kind of a combined?
Do it combined.
Do it combined? Okay, so I'll let you get started. Thank you for being here.
My name's Dave Corwith, and
I'm James.
and I started in aviation in high school. I went to Career Day. We had a Career Day as a junior, and we all went out to the buses, and one of the buses was going to Calverton, Grumman, and I got on that bus, and we went through a complete tour of the plant there, And I sat in an F-14 and I said, that's what I want to do. So, but when I went to school in Embry-Riddle, which was in Florida, which is an aviation-oriented school, but I didn't fly there. I actually went there for maintenance and electronics because I started in maintenance, and I started as, I'm just going to go for 2 years. And this is where higher education is important, but my first goal was just 2 years. And my second 2 years, I did the electronics, is what I really wanted to do, so I stayed for the second 2 years, which gave me a 4-year degree, and that gave me the opportunities to go in the Navy or the military. So when I got out of college, I went into, I took the exam for the Navy, placement exam, for officer placement exam is what you have to do to fly there. So I didn't get accepted the first year. It was end of fiscal year, and so I had to wait for the following fiscal year, and I went and I got a job with Delta as a mechanic. So I worked out of LaGuardia, but I did midnights. And it was very rewarding, but it was also challenging because we started the shift at 11 at night and you work till 8. That's when the planes get worked on, because during the day, people don't want to fly at night, they want to fly during the day. So I did that for 6 months, retook the exam, got into the Navy, and then I joined, and that's where I learned to fly. So just like our chef who was in the service, there's a lot that comes out of any of the military services, and that is good discipline and good structure, and it really teaches you about, you can go into any industry when you come out of that, and most employers are very, very positive towards those attributes that you have. So the Navy taught me how to fly, and I flew trainers. You start in Pensacola. Corpus Christi is where I went through. Primary flight training, they give you about 100 or 200 hours, and then you would get selected to jets, props, or helos. I went into props, or E2, C2s, which is the Navy's AWACS, lands on the ship, and then I was assigned to a squadron in East Coast or West Coast. I chose East Coast because that's where I live, it was here. And so I flew for that for 9 years. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I had a grand time, traveled around the world, very challenging for somebody who's 20-something to do that, but also very rewarding and really enjoyed doing it. So after that, the typical progression is I went back to the training command in Meridian, Mississippi. Choices were Beeville, Texas, or Meridian, Mississippi. I took the lesser of two evils there. I had a grand time. Turned out I had a wonderful time there because Meridian was a lot of fun. And we had a lot of camaraderie that came with the job. And because all the people around me were all about the same age. And we were all birds of a feather, if you will. Pardon the... So that takes me to training. We did that for 3 years, and I was an instructor. So after that, the progression is to go on. Most guys get out and go to the airlines, or they go back to sea, and they have to go back, and a lot of... That's where the breakaway is in the services, because after 8 or 9 years, to go back out to sea again, it gets challenging because it's a cruise. You've been on a Love Boat cruise or something, right, for a week. Well, this is 6 months, so it's a little bit longer. So that gets challenging for family separation. But after that, it's the airlines, and that's where I am today, and I've been there for 19 years with American. So I actually, when I first got out, the airlines were not hiring. And so I went back and forth, moved back here, and that was a challenge. Moving back from Mississippi to here was a cost of living. It was a huge cost of living adjustment. However, I had family here that I could do that, and that was very helpful for me. So I always said to the guys that were getting out, they were like, where are we going to go? Am I going to go back to Virginia Beach? Am I going to go back to San Diego? And the answer was, go where your family is. Stay with your tribe, with your family, and they'll help you with wherever you're going to go next. That's so important in life. And as these other folks have said, get a good education, whether it's 2 years. If you're not, I don't really want, I'm not going to do 4 years. I just can't bring myself to do that. Then go for 2. Start with 2 and see where that takes you. And then go to 4. If you like what you're doing, move on. And another common thread that I'm hearing here is, well, what do you want to do? What's your passion? Figure out what your passion is, and then figure out how to get paid to do it. And that's and that's kind of what I've done. I loved aviation. I didn't know what part of aviation I wanted to get into, but I got into the mechanics first, the electronics, and then ultimately I started to fly. So I've got a background in aviation, which I've enjoyed, and it has helped me along the way. So a typical day for me is driving today as an airlines is to drive to the airport, which I think is sometimes the hardest part of the job, is getting there. It's a 2-hour job on the Southern State or 495, going to either Kennedy, LaGuardia, or Newark. Those are the 3 airports I have to cover. But I do almost all of my flying out of Kennedy, which is the easiest of the 3, so I do that intentionally. And then I'll go on a 1, 2, or 3-day trip someplace and then come back. So if it's a 1-day trip, I could drive to the airport, fly down to the Caribbean and back. That's typically what it is, St. Bart's, or we go to St. Kitts or St. Martin, and then jump over to St. Bart's for this gentleman, for Tony, and then fly back. We're there for 45 minutes. We turn the plane around. We let the people get off. We get the bags off. The people come back on. New bags come back on, and then we fly back home. It's a nominal 4 hours in between. 4 hours down, 4 hours back. That's 8 hours of just the flying. You have to be there an hour prior, and then your drive home. So when I door to door, it's a 14 to 16-hour day, depending on where we're going and what we're doing. So that's a 1-day. But a lot of people don't do a 1-day trips. They do 2 or 3-day trips because it combines the time and makes the things a little bit easier to travel. So, James, how do you start?
Sure.
How do you start in aviation? And that's one of our questions here: is how do you get it started, and how do you kick it off? And James has done a good job of that so far.
Yep. So hello, everyone. For those millennials in the audience, if your attention span's anything like mine, it's short. So I'll keep this as brief as possible here. So by way of background, I'm in my 2nd and final year of aviation flight school. I'm in a flight management program, which will basically the tail end of it, I'll graduate with a commercial pilot's license, and then at which point I'll become eligible to fly for an airline like Mr. Corwith does here. So how it works is you need various certifications to become a commercial pilot or to become a commercial aviator in the future, if that's what you so choose to do. And I think when you're young, when you guys are the age you are right now, you really have to decide what kind of flying, if flying is what you decide to do. Would you like to do? Would you fly civilian? So do you want to fly for a commercial airline, or do you want to fly corporately, work for a corporation, or fly for a private individual? If none of the above, you can choose to fly in the military like Mr. Corwith did. There are various pros and cons for each option if you so choose to go forward with one of them. If you fly in the military, the training is all free, but the flip side is that you'll owe them anywhere from 7 to 10 years of service on the tail end. Right. If you choose to go the civilian way, the barriers to entrance are slightly higher, right? So the cost of getting a license is expensive because training is expensive, jet fuel is expensive, instruction is expensive, right? Now in the United States, where I'm not actually doing my training, I'm doing my training in Canada, it is more expensive, and I know the availability of grants and student loans and student debts are incredibly burdensome. But in the long term, the skills that you'll garner will absolutely pay themselves off. So I know Embry-Riddle is a fantastic option. It's a 2 or 4 year program?
Either one.
2 or 4 year program. And you'll graduate with a university degree and a pilot's license. You'll get your private pilot's license, and you'll get your commercial pilot's license. And you'll get various certifications along the way, your instrument ratings, your multi-engine rating, which I believe you'll have to do later in life.
Right.
But, for you millennials in the audience, you're like, well, I don't want to do a 9-to-5 job. And that's why I chose aviation, right? I mean, I went to university and I had internships in the city and finance and commercial real estate. And for me, I didn't find that to be very interesting. I wanted a job where I could choose my schedule. I wanted a job where the work-life balance was healthy and conducive to doing more things than just what was my career, right? As a pilot, you get to bid your own schedule. When you go to work, you're working, right? But when you leave work, no one's emailing you, no one's paging you, right? Your free time is your own free time, and I think all the panelists here can attest to that I'm sure they wish they had some of that, right? And the industry is perfect for aviators right now. It's different.
Once you get through your training, whichever career path you take, you're going to get hired.
Hell yeah.
If you're breathing, you're going to get hired. Why? Because there's a huge shortage right now of pilots And part of the reason for that was one of the barriers. The FAA mandates all the rules, just changed the rules about 2 years ago, and they went from 500 minimum of, I think it was 250 hours of flight time that you had to have before you could get on with the regionals. They went from 250 to 1,500 overnight, and it basically put this huge wall up, and it just put a huge bubble into the hiring track for pilots. So now the industry had to go and find new ways to bring pilots in. And so American has a beginning program. JetBlue has a beginning program where they will train you, and then you sort of, similar to the military, you give back your time there with them, and they'll almost guarantee you a job on the back end, short of getting in trouble and totally screwing up, which is one of those no-nos on our list here, is stay away from the drugs, stay away from the alcohol, do a good job in education, and have fun with what you're doing, and you'll do fine. Really, you can do it. If you want to, you can do it. I really believe that. Put your heart into it. And one of the other questions was enthusiasm. I got to say that goes a long way when you're starting out with a job anywhere, and attitude. Take those with you. Go into a job with a good attitude. Go in enthusiastic about what you want to do, and not everything you're going to do you're going to like. There's not a job out there that everything you do you're going to enjoy. So you're gonna have ups and downs in any job, and I have that too when I go to work. So I have my share of frustrations that we all have. So, but in the end, it's a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing it.
Questions from the audience? So you mentioned that there's three, private, commercial, and then military. You're a student currently, so what way are you leaning towards, and why are you leaning towards that?
Yeah, so by way of background, my father's a commercial pilot, flies for Alaskan Airlines. And his father before him was a pilot, and on my mother's side of the family, her father was a pilot too. So naturally, I'm inclined to want to check out flying. And fortunately for me, my father's a Canadian, which gave me a Canadian citizenship. And flight training in Canada is remarkably cheaper than it is in the United States. And so I didn't have to go the military route to get my training because it was very much affordable. And now that's not to say that flight training in the United States is so staggeringly overpriced that no one can afford it now, right? I think it's become more accessible, and I think the barriers to entrance are less now. But I chose to go the civilian route because I wanted a quality of life that I felt commercial flying could afford to me, which was a good, healthy work-life balance, which was free travel and benefits, and which was, no emails on the weekends.
So for people who are thinking maybe, so I got into the travel industry before I became a full-time journalist, but I was on the agent side, booking you guys.
Right.
So I got into it because I love the idea of travel benefits. For people who are thinking maybe I want to be a pilot because I get, like you said, all these benefits, I'm sure there are parts of your job that are a little bit more demanding that students should be aware of, aside from, just the long hours. Or getting up and going. What would you say is something that you kind of didn't expect, either being in the industry that's changing or about to enter the industry, something that's kind of an unexpected demand? It's okay to not like your job. It's okay, well, part of your job. It's okay not to like.
Unexpected demand. When I go to work and things go smoothly, it's terrific. Right? We get out on time, and we fly down to St. Martin, we drop off our passengers, and then we come back. But along the way, there's 100 little I gotchas that get in the way. The weather, the traffic getting to work, when we get there, the delays, mechanical, the plane's not ready, and I could sit for 3 or 4 hours waiting for the airplane. I don't get paid for that. So that's just makes my day longer, and it's not, those are the frustrations that come with it, or the challenges that come with it. But or you sit. I spend a lot of time in a hotel room, and it's my time, but it's time away from home. Right. And sometimes you want to. It's better to be at home. However, so there's a balance there. between that. But I've been able to make it work, and you work through those things, and you know, you always, it takes if you will, a savings bank of patience sometimes to get through, and just simply wait, and things will get, you know, things are going to push through, and we'll get this flight off as safely as we can, as expeditiously as we can. Because it's also very stressful, as you all well know, that the TSA, Transportation Security Administration, has, we used to be an open society, we're still an open society, but we have huge restrictions now on flying. So it's something that is very stressful for people when they come to and from the airports, as we all know today, traveling. So, okay, I'll let you move on.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant over there.
Okay. So, hi everybody. Thanks for sticking it out. So how did I get here? For those of you who are interested in becoming a police officer, it's not difficult. You just have to be a little patient, put some time and effort in, reach out, and inquire. So I got this job because I was working in a retail store on Main Street during college, and picked up the phone. I had noticed the traffic officers that I'm sure you all see in the summertime that we hire, issuing parking tickets, young kids. I called up the police department and I said, hey, do you have any positions open for the summer? And the lieutenant at the time said, we don't, they're all filled. However, would you like to go to the Seasonal Police Academy? That was the last thing on my mind. And I said, well, what does it entail, and what do I need to do? I was finishing up my last year of college. I went to CW Post up in Glen Cove. I finished my college up there. It was my last year. I was on a partial scholarship for field hockey. Had to give that up because I would be going to the academy at night on my own time and not getting paid. So it was 6 months of doing that, but I looked at it as an investment, and the time was well spent because of where I am now. And it took a while to get where I am, but those 6 months in the academy, and it took me 3 years to get the full-time job. I worked foot patrol for 2 summers. I was able to get assigned to a squad because I was doing well and I was receptive. I was passionate. I kept my mouth shut and my ears open, and I did what I was told. And that's how I went through my entire career. And as a result, I've had a very fortunate career. So the academy is 6 months. Again, I did it on my own time. There is a full-time academy that you can go to, and you get paid for it. At some point, you have to take a written test. The test that I got hired off of, I wasn't on a list when I got hired for the department. I was a seasonal employee for just a summer for 3 years. That third summer, I had taken a test the year prior, and I scored very well on it, and I was hired. But I had to move into the village in order to get hired. I had to be a village resident. I grew up right on Little Neck Road, which is just outside of the village, but I had to get an apartment, establish my residency to be put on the village list. So having a village address puts you on the village list for the police, the town list, and also the county, because you're going to be taking the county test for those of you who are interested. And it'll get you on 3 lists, and it's your best chance of getting hired somewhere. I love this job. I really do. I still love it. I'm in a new position. I've been in a new position for about 6 months now. Prior to that, I was a sergeant, supervised the men and women in the department, different squads. I worked midnights for 5 years. While I was still a police officer, I was assigned for 3 years to a DA's drug task force where I was not in this department. I was out with other agencies doing undercover work. I was on wiretaps, and I had a really good time, and it really rounded me out as a police officer. And I think the one thing that I will tell you is that I did have a misstep and a mistake, and the mistake was that I doubted myself. I doubted myself when my chief at the time told me, you're going to this new assignment. And it was a new assignment, and I was here for 10 years as a cop, and this is what I know. And that chief said, give me 30 days. And in my head, I said, I'll give you 30 days, and I'm coming back. 3 years later, I was pulled out of there because I got promoted to sergeant. And I had the best time in there, and I learned so much about so many different things that I would never have learned had I said no. I really didn't have a choice. I had to go. But if I had said no, I would have been missing out on everything that I learned, and I was able to bring back here, and other people have since gone. And everybody that goes there doesn't want to come back because it's such a good opportunity. But it really does round you out. Right now, my current assignment, I'm a patrol lieutenant. I'm in charge of the scheduling, handing out overtime assignments, coordinating events. As a sergeant, I did the field training. I field trained a lot of police officers. I love doing it. That has now been handed down to another sergeant, and I oversee it. So I'll still have a part of it. I think it's really important to, when you first come out of the academy, to really make an impression on that new officer. Even though they're making one on you, you need to make one and kind of let them see that you still love this job and you want to do it. So I think that's really important for the new people to see. I have my first seasonal class that I put through as a lieutenant. They're going through right now. There's 6 of them, and I'm really excited for them. And I remember when I went through, I needed a go-to person, and I didn't have any contact with anybody in the department because they just kind of pushed you out and said, figure it out and come back in the summer and we'll give you a job. So I have these 6 officers, potential officers, that I hope all make it, and I'm really looking forward to going to their graduation and seeing them get their certificates and getting them certified for the summer.
Questions from the audience? Okay, let's move on over to Russell.
Hi, my name is Russell Cradle. I'm the village administrator. I can only say that now for about 5 days. I just started here. Thank you. I did want to mention that someone that everyone should know, especially if you have younger children. I see Tracy Colson in the audience. He is from the Southampton Youth Bureau. He runs a program called Broader Horizons every summer. And if you have, say, 15, 16-year-olds, correct, Tracy? Go to the town's website and take a look at that. It's a great opportunity for slightly younger adolescents to learn a lot about job training and so forth. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. So before I talk about a little bit about what I do, I think it's important to understand government and how it works, because essentially every single person who gets paid by a municipality, a school district, a library, holds a civil service position, okay? And there are different types of civil service positions. There's an elected position, which, our mayor, our trustees were elected into office. There are certain appointed exempt positions. So there are certain positions in which people get appointed and they're exempt. They work directly for policymakers. But then the majority of the positions, including a position I held just prior to this, the lieutenant has, are building inspectors. They are competitive civil service positions. So you need to pass a civil service exam in order to even be considered most of the time for these positions. So it's something that people who are looking to get into government need to be aware of, that is a necessary requirement to get into government. Let's talk about how the structure of the village works. Obviously, the village board, they are the people who make the policies and set the code for the village. My job is to take their policies and their codes and work with the public and work with the employees of the village in helping get that mission accomplished. I don't work a patrol. I don't plow snow. I don't do any of the things, pick up leaves. I don't do any of the things that the residents of this village are looking for out of their government. My job is to try to help those folks have the tools and the assets they need and the training necessary so that they can get their job done. So they can focus on their job, and a lot of the things that need to get done on a day-to-day basis, they can worry about their jobs, and staff here in Village Hall can get them the tools they need. On a day-to-day basis, I oversee and manage the budget of the village. Again, the village board sets the budget. They're the ones, if we need to make any type of budget transfers and so forth. I don't have the authority to do that. They do, but I initiate it and I approve, all the budgetary items that happen on a day-to-day basis. Interact with the public, interact with employees on a day-to-day basis. That's another broad and important aspect of the job that I do. One of the things I think that is absolutely critical is one of the first things I said the second day I worked here. One of the most important things of my job is I want to make sure that every single employee, when they come in the morning, that they go home at night in the same condition that they came to work. So it's important that, make sure that we have all the appropriate safety equipment that they need, and all the necessary training for tree trimming and all those types of things, because that's a critical part of I think my job is to make sure that everybody who comes to work goes home in the same condition that they started the day. How did I get involved in doing this? I've always been part of the public. I grew up in my parents owned a luncheonette in Riverhead. I was always dealing with the public. I listened to a lot of the things that the community talked about, things that they felt that they wanted to see in their community, and I always wanted to be part of the community. I went away to school and I got a degree in business, and I focused both in management and in finance, which both have come in very handy throughout my career. It was, quite a long path to get here. I've worked for multiple governmental agencies along the way. Had to pass several exams to promote and move up. So that's part of the way when you're working in government of taking a promotion. The lieutenant said that she had to sit for an exam to become a police officer. She also had to sit for an exam to become a sergeant. She also had to sit for an exam to become a lieutenant. So, when you're working in the public sector, being able to take a test. So there's a piece of advice, taking these types of exams in school seem boring, and why can't you just, hey, I know the material, taking exams is an important aspect of most professions, whether you're going to be an architect at some point in time, you want to pass, a professional exam. I know that we're a little short of time, so I'm going to kind of move quickly. One of the things I think is important, also oversee the human resources aspect of the village. I've been in human resources for the better part of my career, and some of the tips that I think are important. I've probably looked at more than 10,000 resumes, over the last 30 plus years. I think it's important that you have a good solid resume and you have experience if you can have it on your resume. But I also think there's certain things that you should have in your resume that are unique, something that's going to make you stand out. And that's why I think finding balance in what you do in your life is very, very important. As many people said, most jobs take a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of dedication and a lot of work. But you need to have a balance in your life. And I think employers are looking for that as well, because I think that's a very important aspect, in being good at what you do. Everyone talks about loving what you do and finding what it is that you like and following it. I also think you have to be real with yourself and find out if you're good at it. Because I have seen people make this mistake. I love to cook, probably a good example. I love to cook, okay? So I'm going to get a career in cooking. But you ought to find out if you're good at it. Because, yes, you can muddle along in the food industry for years and years and years and be miserable because you're not promoting, you're not moving very well because you're not very good at it. So I think it's important to not only find out what you like, but also find out a little bit if you're good at it. I think that's important. So I know we're kind of pushing, so if anyone has any questions.
Any questions from anyone? I think that's a great point, by the way, because sometimes it's a little bit of like being realistic about expectations, managing them too.
I thought I wanted to go into journalism.
That's not an easy field, I'll tell you that much.
I worked for Summer Life one summer, and I realized I just wasn't that good at it. It took me, 5 days to put out something that really I should have put out in much shorter time.
Writer's
So-
block's a real thing.
Right.
It definitely is. Okay, so moving on, let's go to Carl, right in front of me.
Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Kimberly for inviting me to come. When she gave me the call, I was surprised because I just started my job at Suffolk Community College as a professor. So I'm like, why is she calling me? I just got this job. So thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. So I started at Suffolk Community College in Selden, New York as a professor in their communication arts program, radio, specifically radio and television. And the first tip I'll tell you guys is just turn your hobbies into careers. And how I got started in media is I'm a big sports fan. I love sports, and I'm always watching with my dad and just talking sports, watching football, basketball, baseball. And then I noticed that my high school had an elective in journalism. So I said, oh, all right, let me see if I can write a sports article. So I started writing sports articles for the school paper. And then all of a sudden I started noticing that a lot of the sports writers are on TV and they're anchors too, and they're play-by-play or they do color analysts for the games. So I said, if I can write an article, maybe I can go into the field of, speaking and doing broadcasting. I told my parents laughed at me. They totally laughed and said, no, you're not doing that. I don't want you to do that. My parents are from Haiti, so their mindset is doctor, lawyer, engineer, the successful branches to go into. And I said, but I don't want to do those things. So I said, I decided I was going to go into the field of communication and just follow a dream of being on ESPN. That was the way I really wanted to do. So after I graduated college from St. Francis College in Brooklyn, I realized getting to ESPN may not be the best thing because it's harder than I expected it to be. But I still had a degree in communication and film and broadcasting. During my time at St. Francis, I had an internship at Sesame Workshop. I worked with Elmo for a whole summer, which is kind of cool. I was bringing the guy who did Elmo coffee and la 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 Elmo's World. So that was a really cool experience. All summer long, I was on the set just learning different production techniques and video production. So yes, I love sports, but adding Sesame Workshop started to expand my horizons about video broadcasting and how television works. So after I did that internship during my junior year, when I graduated from St. Francis, I was home for 2 months just looking for work. And I'm sure Nikki can attest to this, in working in communication and journalism, it's a very hard field. It's a very, very tough field. So I was home, and then here comes my parents. Oh, well, I told you you shouldn't have got that degree in comm. I told you it wasn't going to work out. But I stuck it out, and I ended up getting another internship. That summer, I was home working for a company called Show Force, and they did documentary work for PBS. So I was able to work as an intern there, and then I got promoted to their post-production department, supervising projects. And they released a big project for the Big Apple Circus. They followed the Big Apple Circus around for a year, and I was on their post-editing team. So for 3 years, and I was also working on my master's. So for 3 years, I was freelancing. I'm like, yeah, I got a job, all right, it's all cool. And then freelancing is, you do it for 2 years, and then next thing you know, you're home again. So I was going back and forth freelancing with them. I had the opportunity to go to Haiti to translate to. So Creole was my first language because my grandmother raised me. So I was able to go to Haiti to translate on a project after the earthquake, and they were going to release a film. So I was the subtitling, sitting in there and working. So that's all in the freelancing process. After the company with PBS was over, the Haiti project was over, I was home again. Here come my parents again. Oh, you're home, you have no career, you have no job. What are you doing with yourself? I told you should have been a doctor. You should have been a doctor. And I'm like, all right, just give it some time. And again, freelancing was really something it's tough to be a freelancer. So I was literally, after I finished with my master's, I kind of got my master's degree in comm arts because I wanted to teach. And I said that was kind of like the fallback plan, that I knew I was good at broadcasting, and I figured I could want to teach and give back. So in the process of freelancing, while I was home during that time, St. Francis, I was able to know the professors, and they said, go get your master's degree and we'll give you an adjunct position as a professor to teach. So I said, all right, cool. So I ended up, after I finished my master's, I ended up going back to St. Francis where I graduated, and I started teaching public speaking as the first course. Then I started teaching television studio production, advanced television studio production, and those kind of courses. But that was only as an adjunct. We're only able to teach 2 classes per semester. It's not full time. So I was only able to get 2 classes in. Then after that, I went back to the freelancing. So again, the way freelance works is they call you for a job and you do the job for as much time as they need you. So I freelance with the company again, just doing assistant editing work, which is video production, editing, and helping the production team. After that project was over, I started looking for more work, and then St. John the Baptist hired me as a full-time teacher, high school teacher, to manage their video production department. So my job was to work with high school students on producing media content to upload to the YouTube channel, working with MSG Varsity, and I was basically the communication, video broadcasting teacher for the entire school. So my daily job was just recording, working in studio, directing studio. Instead of having announcements on a PA system, they had a TV studio with a 13-minute program that broadcasted in the school, so I was able to produce that. I also became their social media coordinator. This was on the rise of social media. Who here loves social media? Me? I love it, right? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. So the school needed a social media presence to get the word out about what they're doing. So I became that person sending out the tweets if the team won a basketball game, putting up YouTube videos of highlights of the game and doing so forth things. So I was there for 7 years, and then at some point in my career, I felt like it was time for me to take that next step, and I really wanted to teach college full time. It's tough to get into a 4-year school because a PhD is required to become a full-time professor, but at a 2-year school, a community school, your master's is required and you need to get a second master's, which I'm currently in the process of obtaining. So my current position, it took me 3 years. I went on countless interviews to get it, but finally I got it this past fall, and I've been there since, and it's great. Some of my daily now, and I'm also still adjuncting at St. Francis, so getting hired at Suffolk, I had 6 classes this semester, plus 2 classes at Suffolk, so a total of 8 classes in 2 schools, so running crazy. It's a lot. It's a lot, but I love it. And the semester's over tomorrow. Yes, right? So the one thing I will say about teaching is the scheduling is easier because it's just, well, now teaching college, I get the month of January off. Yes, right? It's great. I get summers off. Yes, that's great, right? But during my summertime too, as opposed to I could easily stay home because the summers are paid, but I get bored. So what I do is I work at a summer camp over my summer, and I take pictures and video for a kid's kid all summer long, so parents can see their kid running around at camp all day. So I do their video yearbook. So I'm able to still freelance while I still teach. Some of the things I do during the day in some of my classes, we have a remote band class where we live broadcast basketball games. So I'm in charge of directing those games. There's a webcast where people can click on to watch the games. It's working on ESPN, but for Suffolk Community College. I'm also the club advisor for the Broadcasters Club. We just created our own show called Off the Hook. So those are some different things and programs. The 2-year school, I believe, is great, Suffolk Community College, where if you really don't know what you want to do, you can basically go there for 2 years. It's also very affordable compared to a 4-year school, and you can easily get a major there and then transfer and then go into the work field. Follow your dreams. Don't ever let anyone tell you you can't do something. If you have a passion for something and you want to do it, go for it.
Including your parents.
Including your parents. And now, looking back at my parents, and they're like, oh yeah, maybe he was right. You know, right? Looking back at it 10 years later, they're kind of like, oh yeah, my son is a professor now. I'm like, oh yeah, 10 years ago before, no one wanted to believe it. But I love them. So without them, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. But honestly, the biggest tip, again, like I said, is just follow your dreams, follow your heart. I'm always encouraging my students now, if you want to go into the field of communication, it's the best field in the world because the media runs the world, in my opinion. TV, radio, social media, journalism, we pretty much have the world in our hands, and we pretty much get the news out there. That's our responsibility. That's what I do right now to teach students the fundamentals, and one of the biggest things now I always try to teach my students is seeing it from both sides of perspectives, given in our political climate now, it's a matter of choosing sides, but always listen to both sides. And because we are the media, we pretty much shape opinions, whether it's whatever we do with video, whether we do with social media, on Twitter, and all these different things. So I teach a variety of courses: copy and script writing, electronic field production, video editing, television studio production. If you want to become a comm major, I say come to Suffolk. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Agree with everything he just said. Questions from the audience? No? Okay, so now let's go to Nicole, who's also an administrator, school administrator. Hi.
Again, my name is Nicole Carr. I am currently a school administrator at the Academy Charter School in Nassau County. Okay. But first, I just want to piggyback on some of the things that was said at this point. For someone who's interested in thinking about what is it that I want to do for the next couple of years of my life, 20, 30 years from now, it can be scary, it can be confusing, but you really need to research. You know, in this day and age, in the information age, there's no excuse. You can read books, you can go on the internet, find people that are in that field, ask questions, whether you know them or not. You can get information so that you have something to start with. And then you continue to see what else is it that I like to do. You know, think about your passions that you may have always had or your interests, and then you go forward with that. For me, I like change, and it's something that I've learned over the years with experience. I've always had a nurturing quality to me. I like working with kids, so educational field, I've been there for the last 15 years or so, but I've worked myself up and now I'm an administrator. And of course that comes with a lot of education and school, you know, going to school, getting my bachelor's, then getting my master's, then getting my certification as a school district administrator. And I'm also currently a doctoral student, so I actually really love school. I don't know how I do it all, but I do. And in my field and what I do right now, I'm very busy. I oversee 2 locations in Nassau County, Uniondale, and Hempstead. And I'm Director of Student Services. So that's pretty much everything you could think of in terms of providing services for our students, special education. I work with the at-risk population. I work with parents. I work with other stakeholders. I work with organizations. I work with agencies. I work with other administrators in all the buildings. I work with the teachers. I also do coaching and mentoring. And I absolutely actually love it. I love moving around. I love not having to be in my office all day. I'm lucky if I get to be in my office to do administrative work, but I get to move around a lot. But of course that comes with challenges because you are the go-to person. You are the problem solver. Everybody needs you. So that balance that we talk about in our life, we have to make sure that we make time for ourselves, that we have that healthy life, because it can be overwhelming and challenging at times. So you got to make sure you're doing things on the side that you like to do. You take the time for yourself, you know, with your family, because you're always giving your all, right? And with that said, with all the experience and all the professional development I've done, trainings, workshops, I've actually ventured into the world of entrepreneurship for myself. And I actually created a business called Passion to Purpose. And it's exciting because I hear a lot of the word passion and purpose being thrown around today, because that is really the crux of why we're here and what we do and how we inspire ourselves to give back to others. So I offer a variety of services of coaching. I offer training, development, working in schools. I've even done motivational speaking engagements. I'm even a co-author of a book that has to do with financial literacy. So with that said, the sky's the limit. You know, it may seem like if you decide to choose a career that you're stuck in that career, and that's not so. People change careers, they change jobs over the years, but if you have the determination, you have the passion, and your focus, and you put your mind to it, there's nothing that you can't do. So it's just really about setting goals for yourself, and I'm very big on that. You know, I used to keep a journal for myself, I still do, and I look back at all the milestones and all the things that I've accomplished, and I'm very proud of myself because I've kept at it. And you're gonna go through, you know, paths where you go up and down, may go a few steps back, but if you stay focused, stay the course, surround yourself around positive people who are supportive, there's nothing that can stop you. And also part of what I do is, other than journaling, but I also believe in vision boarding. And with the new year coming, I started creating my vision board for 2019. I don't know if you ever heard of The Secret, but that's really what it's about. It's about envisioning where you see yourself and making it come to life. And that's because you're always having those thoughts in the back of your mind, but you're actually taking those small steps, like small goals, short-term goals, to long-term goals, and then before you know it, the next year, 2 years, 5 years, you've accomplished all the things that you've dreamed of. All right? So that's what I want to share with you guys.
Questions? Okay, so let's, Helen, we'll hear from you now. Hi.
Well, first I would like to thank Kimberly for organizing this Youth Career Day. Thank you, Nicole, for your moderation. Thank you, students and parents, for being here, and the panelists. all very interesting, very professional, and I think everyone had something really a good takeaway for the students to hear. So, I know there are two of us left, a lawyer and a financial advisor. So I'm going to just, I'll try to, make it a little more interesting. So if anybody here gets excited when they hear the word Wall Street, that is a little aspect of what a financial advisor does. So as a certified financial planner, I'm also the branch manager for UBS Financial Services right here on 8 Main Street. I encourage anyone, if they're passing by, we're always open on the 4th of July, stop in, see me, come in, knock hello, everyone is welcome. What happens in that branch, in our branch, we have 3 floors there. We have financial advisors, about a dozen, 12 financial advisors. We have client service associates. And so you might say, what does a financial advisor do? Because, I don't think that many people are really clear on that. So it's pretty, it's very professional, it's very serious. What we do is people, students, once you turn 18, you can do this because actually it's 21, I'm sorry, in New York State. You have assets, which are another fancy word for money, and you want your money to grow. And what we do as financial advisors is we help people with financial planning, how to grow your assets, how to save money throughout your life. So when you have a job, if you have a 401k, make a contribution. If you don't have a 401k, use an IRA. And what you want to do, if you have children, maybe a 529 plan to help save for their college. So what you're doing your whole life is saving a little bit of whatever you earn so that when you're ready to retire, everything you've saved over your lifetime is now your new, I call it like a pension plan, or it's your new company, because that savings that you've made over your entire life is going to help take you through retirement, along with hopefully Social Security if it's still, available, and your assets that have grown. And over we used to say when people retire, they don't be in retirement for 10 years. So if you retired at, 65, by 75, unfortunately, you wouldn't be on earth anyway to need any more money. However, now people are retiring at 65. They are living for another full 30 years, and they can have another whole career. So, any of the students who are really interested in stocks and bonds and helping people achieve their life goals through financial planning, also build relationships, because it's about, I work with people I've known now, I'm embarrassed to say, over 30 years. And what happens if you want to become a financial advisor, I'll give you some ideas on what you can do. First of all, you have to love people. You're always communicating. An ordinary day for me is out of the ordinary. Communicating with clients, talking to families, talking with lawyers and accountants, listening to what's happening on Wall Street with, stocks and bonds, listening to research that's coming through our systems, putting plans together, reviewing plans with people. I'm going to spare you, all the fancy terminologies, but I actually love what I do, and I'm going to give you a little secret. This is not my first career. My first career, I was a school teacher. So when I graduated as an educator, and I did teach, and I taught 6th grade for about 5 years. And I was a Catholic parochial school, and I did like that a lot. And believe it or not, if you, as a financial advisor, you have the same skill set. The difference is, instead of helping a child grow through time to get to be able to advance to the next grade, you're helping now clients start their financial lives grow through, it's wonderful to see, because they start jobs, they get married, they have children go to college, they retire. Some people don't have children, but they're doing philanthropic work, they're volunteering, and that's another big one. Oh, so I heard someone here talk about resumes, and as a branch manager, I do hire people. That's the other side of what I do at UBS. Your resume is a picture of who you are and what you've done. So if you like volunteering, volunteer. If you like to be on sports, be a leader in your sport activity. If you are in your high school, join the government, be on the board, work with your principals and your teachers, get involved, because those are leadership qualities. And when you have those leadership qualities, you're going to open up your world to a lot of really fabulous opportunities, whether you become an entrepreneur, or you become an educator, or you become an administrator, or you become a doctor or a lawyer or a financial advisor. Those skills that you get by interacting with adults as you're growing and learning and educating yourself are very meaningful. And if I can give a tip, I'm going to stop after two things here. I'm going to give you a tip. My tip is, whatever you feel in your heart, learn about it. Interact with other people who are doing that for a living. Like, you can call up Tony and say, I'm interested in landscaping or plants, and we will talk with you. Okay, our door's open. People do want to give back and help younger people, because when we see you, we see ourselves. We know how it was back then. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is a misstep. The misstep is after I left teaching and I went to Wall Street. I wanted to be where all the fun was and all the people were making a lot of money. I actually doubled my salary, and I love teaching. And you can teach. I feel like I still teach, but through a different channel. Never give up. I almost gave up when I was a financial advisor after 3 years. Oh, I can't do this. It's very difficult, because you're a professional, so you're not on a salary. You have to develop relationships with clients, with individuals, with business people, and you have to be trusted, and you have to be smart, because you're investing their money the way you would invest your own money, and you want to make sure that it grows. I don't want anybody calling me up saying, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So you're very responsible. But I say, never give up on your dreams. I heard that here too. Stick with it. And I have a great Steve Jobs saying that I try to keep in my back pocket, and I want to share it with you today, is stay hungry and stay foolish. And you can do it. And just reach out to people around you. They will help. So I hope you enjoyed this information.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. And last but not least.
Last but not least.
How's it feel?
Great. My name's Stephen Ham. I'm an associate at Skadden Arps, which is a major international law firm in New York City. We have 1,700 attorneys spread across 22 offices worldwide. New York is HQ, and I'm in the Trust and Estates group there. I'm an estate planner, which is very complimentary of what Helen does. And we have the smallest practice group in the whole firm. It's a great way to work at a big law firm. I'm a fourth-year associate there. I'm fairly recently graduated from law school. It's a great way to work in the big firm environment, but do things where I interact, do a type of law where I interact with people in my daily practice, and practice a type of law that most people could practice anywhere. I mean, there are lawyers in Southampton who do this. It doesn't matter. Like, the estate planning is a necessary component of a financial plan for any individual. And just for people generally, because you can't take it with you. So this is something that it's a type of law that's transferable, to many different environments. In law, you can do a lot. You can work for the government. You can lock up the bad guys. You can do public interest law and help people who can't afford their own legal services, help get them government benefits, or help them with evictions or things like that. But what most people do, at least most people who go to law school, I went to University of Virginia Law School. Most people who go to law school go into private practice for a few years, which is what I do at Skadden. I check my email all the time. That is something that you would have to be prepared to do if you want. And I do not have January off. I do not have any. I have vacation, but it is a very demanding job at that level because our clients pay us a lot of money to be a trusted advisor, and we had better be available, at any hour of the day. Doing trust and estates work for very wealthy people. I am out here. I grew up in Southampton. I'm out here more than I expected. I went to a client's home at 10 a.m. this Sunday of Labor Day weekend to help them with estate planning documents. That's the fun part of the job is the meetings, but it is still demanding, and it is still, I'm going to have to work weekends sometimes, and that's okay. But for anyone who's interested in being a lawyer, I think that reading and writing are the real baseline, less than any sort of technical background at this stage if you're a high school or a college student, because you're writing all the time. I write estate planning documents for people. Litigators write, documents that are going to be filed in court. Transactional attorneys. Our firm represented 21st Century Fox in its acquisition by an asset sale by the Walt Disney Company, which is a big deal. Those people write transaction documents that need to be very clear, and that you do not want to end up in some litigation later if things go south. You need to be a good writer because you're writing for professional readers in a law context. A judge is going to look at what you write. A client is going to look at what you write. I mean, everything just has to be at any level. As a lawyer, you hope that it's perfect. Sometimes we see, not so great work product from other law firms, but you need to read, and you need to know how to write. And to know how to write well, you need to read a lot. And what I would recommend for someone who's interested in law at like the high school or college stage, not necessarily do classes in particular, but stay current with policy, stay current with current events in the New York Times. Read the New York Times, read the Wall Street Journal, read the opinion pages of both of those papers and see if you can agree or disagree with those arguments and poke holes in them. Because you have to think critically and you have to know how to present things well. My typical day, I do not wake up at 4:30 a.m. to go running. My wife makes me run in the morning, but we get up at 7 and we're in the office by 9:30. So law generally starts later than other types of professional jobs. I'm not breaking my back at 7 a.m. But many lawyers do stay very late at the office. A fairly light day for me is to leave at 7 p.m. And if there's work to be done at home that comes up later, I do it. And then a more typical day is 8 or 9. So it can be demanding, and there can be plenty of weekend work and plenty of overtime, types of stuff. I don't know that I really have anything else to say about law in particular. It's a very rewarding practice. Trust in estates is particularly rewarding because I deal with individuals on a regular basis. Most people who are my seniority at Skadden represent companies, and they'll deal with the general counsel of the company or some other, someone in a business or legal capacity in a large organization. But dealing directly with a client who has a family, who has, in our case, quite a bit of wealth and has all the problems that really come with that, can be sticky. It can be, you play psychiatrist sometimes, but it's very rewarding, and relative to some other practice areas at large law firms, it's a fairly predictable hours commitment. But I'm happy to answer questions individually. I know we've run a little over on time, but that's all I really have to say.
Thank you.
Before we make our closing remarks, because we are running a bit over, Tracy from the Southampton Youth Bureau would just like to make a couple of comments.
I want to thank you. This is actually a great opportunity, I think, for the kids involved, and as well as for me observing. As Russell was mentioning, I work with the town of Southampton, the Youth Bureau. Amongst all the great programs that we do, one of the programs we do is called Broader Horizons, and it's a job internship program. So what we do is we have youth who we hire from ages 14 to 17. for 6 weeks. And it's a job training program. So what we do is we teach them resume writing, we teach them interviewing skills, body language, how to conduct yourselves on an interview, how to do a job search. And once they do that, it's probably about 12 to 15 hours of job skills training where they sit down and they learn these things. And then after that, we assign them to either work in a town department or work with a not-for-profit that works with the town as well. It's actually a great program, and the youth that we usually have coming in that I interview either have a very solid idea of what they want to do, or they really don't know at all. So I think programs like this is really helpful to understand, what goes into a professional and how you need to get there too. One of the things I think, was a constant flow through what everyone was saying was you really have to keep your mind open. So like I mentioned before, a lot of kids have an idea, this is what I want to do, and then they turn away opportunities that may get them there because they don't see it as a straight line. So I think it's important to know that you really have to go and explore all your options. One of the things is, I usually get a flood of applications. 30 to 40 applications for the program. We only have funding for probably about 12 to 15 positions, depending upon the year. So the town of Southampton funds that in addition to the County Department of Labor, several positions too. So we're always looking to partner with professionals in the community to take some of those interns on as well. And we've had some interns placed in local businesses and interns placed with doctors and anywhere else. So if anybody's interested, I'd be more than happy to discuss that and see how we could arrange something for the summer. Okay.
I will say to business owners that you will get a very prepared young individual to come in and work in the summer. So if you're willing to participate in the program, it's a great program.
Yeah, the selection process, we make sure that the kids are appropriate and to be placed. Okay. All right. Thank you again.
Panelists, thank you for your very insightful, interesting, unvarnished, really, really passionate descriptions of your professions. I think you've expanded the horizons of not only the students here, but even the adults. And we all sincerely, the mayor, the board, the students, the parents, sincerely thank you for your participation today. It's been just outstanding. Thank you very much. Before we wrap up, we'd like to just make one comment. We'd love to take your picture, but also for the students who are here and who lasted this long, great. You did, thank you so much, but you've actually won the jackpot because you can commandeer either one or every single one of these panelists to answer your questions in the upcoming Mix and Mingle session, but just terrific job. Thank you so much, and have a great New Year's and holiday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.